Welcome back to Tracy Take Tuesday, where we release a mock draft every week between now and the Tuesday leading up to the 2025 NFL Draft. Obviously, if you are watching this, this is coming out not on a Tuesday, but actually on a Thursday. Ryan and I, we are just coming back from Ryan's bachelor party. We had a heck of a lot of fun, and we had to take a couple of days of recovery. I think to get back to this, but I can assure you that Ryan is fully committed, and this is number one top priority, even more than his wedding itself, which is coming up in May, since the draft is before this. And so you get full, unfiltered content from Ryan and myself. And so, with that being said, before getting into Ryan's mock draft here, be sure to subscribe to the Tracy Take if you haven't already. Tackle that bell to get notified when new mock drafts come out, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want your team to do in the first round of the upcoming draft. And Ryan, with that being said, coming back from your bachelor party, you had plenty of
Yeah.
extra time to think about this. Let's get this draft underway.
Yeah. Also, disclaimer that those are Tyler's words and not mine in case my fiance does watch this. But
I don't
let's
think she
pull up.
does.
No, she does. It's whether or not she has the volume on or not.
That's a
Uh,
good. That's a good point too. Actually, yeah, that's fair.
I think she has to listen to me talk enough. But, anyways, into this mock draft. So, not gonna lie, my opinions on these players haven't changed all that much since the last time I did a mock draft. There are a few fallers and a few risers, but not a lot of movement in this one either. So I let's just go ahead and get into it here. Tennessee Titans starting things off strong. I like Cam Ward a lot. I think he's going to be the top quarterback on the board. I think he is a true first round quarterback. I only have 14 players, I believe, in this draft that have a true first round grade. And so I'm going to go with Cam Ward here. They pass up on Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter here and go select the quarterback. I think Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, like that defensive line is in a good spot. They just got, I believe, not Travarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs in last offseason. So, like, I don't think that they are missing out a ton on missing out on missing Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, especially in a deep edge class. I think that they can forego it for now and maybe get good value at the top of the second round here. So we're going to kick things off here with Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. And I guess while that loads, we'll go ahead and start talking about the Browns situation here with Myles Garrett. And I did not have the Browns trade Myles Garrett in this mock draft. I think that it is a hypothetical situation. There are some favorites, I think, to land him. You did the 49ers in your last mock draft. I think there are a few other spots that potentially, well, I don't want to get into hypothetical situations, but there are a few other spots that I think are favorites there. But I think one thing that is pretty certain is that the Browns will be selecting Abdul Carter here at number 2. He's not going to be Myles Garrett. I mean, asking him to be a Hall of Fame caliber player, even for the number 2 overall pick, is pretty high ask. But with that being said, I think he comes in and he's an immediate presence on the edge, an immediate guy that's going to come in and reshape a defense and just be a really, really solid pass rusher from the get-go. There are a few things he needs to work on, especially in the running game and kind of holding up on the edge, but I think those are all things that the Browns can work with him on. And moving on now to the New York Giants. I went back and forth on this one. I thought about doing a hypothetical situation where the Giants are actually the team that gets Aaron Rodgers from the Jets. He is already living in New York. I know the facilities are in 2 different places, but they have a need at quarterback. This offensive line has been improving. They have a solid receiver in Malik Neighbors. This defense, when healthy, actually was fairly decent. So I do think that there is some potential there for the Giants to go out, get a quarterback in free agency, kick the can down the road on drafting a free agent or drafting a quarterback high, get a free agent quarterback, and then going and getting a Travis Hunter. So if that is a situation that Giants fans would like to see play out, I think they would draft Travis Hunter here. I did not go that route. I ended up going with Shadur Sanders. Going back and kind of seeing just how close Brian Daboll was to Shadur Sanders at all times at the Shrine Bowl really piqued my interest and really makes me think that Shadur Sanders is going to be a New York Giant. So going to go here to the New York Giants. And then Travis Hunter is going to go here to the Patriots. I am intrigued a little bit by what he brings to the table, because I think he could be a really, really good corner at the next level. The Patriots already have Christian Gonzalez. So if you want to pair those two up and then have Travis Hunter play third downs on offense and be in more true passing sets on offense, that makes your offense a little bit more predictable. But if you can get a playmaker like Travis Hunter on the field, I think you sacrifice some of that unpredictability just for having good football players on the field. So Travis Hunter going here to the New England Patriots. And with the first 4 picks in the books, just kind of want to get your thoughts on that really quick.
It's I was just even thinking too, like this is pretty much these four guys have, I think,
Yeah.
well, particularly honestly, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter have kind of separated themselves from everybody else. I think Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, obviously prospect wise, are not the top guys, but the positional
Yeah.
need. I can see the Titans and Giants doing this. I can see the Browns skipping on a QB because there are so many other issues going on. So, it, I I just feel like these four players are going to go first four in in any sort of order. The only thing I can maybe see happening is maybe if like Will Campbell or Ted McMillan just absolutely blow it out of the water
Yeah.
at the combine, and the Patriots are like, we want to go with this guy because those are also clear needs for them as well. So, but if Travis Hunter falls to them though too, imagine that secondary with Christian Gonzalez on one side, Travis Hunter on the other. You can go have Josh McDaniels now scheme up some amazing plays with Travis Hunter in specific scenarios. I think that would also just be a match made in heaven as well. So I as the past couple of mock drafts and just as many other mock drafts I've seen, I I wouldn't be too disappointed in any order. I would say, I guess, unless if the Patriots drafted Shador Sanders, then I would be like, that's a bad pick.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, no, I think they would trade back before they draft
Yeah,
Shador Sanders. And the other thing too, so I do think, like, if Travis Hunter wants to play one position full time, and he goes and puts all of his effort into being a receiver, he could be a stud receiver at the NFL level. I mean, he's only really spending half his time at receiver, and he realistically is the number 2 or 3 receiver in this class. Like, he's a first round caliber receiver alone. And so he's also a first round caliber corner alone. So all in all, just a tremendous talent. I think there is just some things left up in the air based off of the fact that he wants to play both ways.
yeah,
That's never really been done before. His body would take a lot of abuse. So I think it's an interesting fit. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I have done Mason Graham here a lot. I know some people are starting to put Tet McMillan with Brian Thomas Jr., thinking that would be a good fit there as well. But I'm going to go with Will Johnson. Personally, I just really like what Will Johnson brings to the table. They need a shutdown corner there as well. They have a really good pass rush with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. So I think if they can go and get a just shutdown corner there, Will Johnson is a really good fit. And we've also talked about this a little bit too. If in this class specifically, if you get Will Johnson, there are 15 other guys at your second round pick that you could go and get that could potentially plug up that middle. None of them might be as good as Mason Graham, but they're still going to come in there. They're going to do their role, and they're gonna do it really well. So I think Will Johnson is the pick there for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving here to the Las Vegas Raiders. So, and this is just more about me. I am not a Tet McMillan fan. Like, in the sense of, like, I don't think Tet McMillan is a top 5 pick. I think if you had him in last year's class, at best, he is the 5th receiver. I think him and AD Mitchell were, like, obviously play styles are different, but, like, we're on the same tier. And I mean, you go look at Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas Jr. All of those guys are better prospects than him. The one guy that I still look at and he has like blue chip potential to me is going to be Ashton Genty. And that offensive line actually isn't awful there in Las Vegas. I think with the um, Pete Carroll being brought in, I think that they're going to have a new mentality. They can go and get a running back that is a really phenomenal runner, pass catcher, pass blocker, and just really start to build out that running game that will help open things up for Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers. Like I think that this is a really good offensive piece for them here at number 6. So I know that's probably not the pick that people want, but I do think in terms of value, Ashton Genty's a really, really solid option here, even though it is at running back. So moving on now to the New York Jets. This is a different pick, a new guy in my top 10, but gone back and just kind of watched him a little bit more. Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, is just a monster. He is like, you can line him up in the backfield, you can line him up as a fullback, you can run wildcat to him, you can line him up in line, you can line him up as an H back, you can really even line him up out wide as a wide receiver. He can kind of do anything and everything, and I think that would be such a good mismatch piece. And frankly, I like him more than I do Tet McMillan, and I know that's a little bit more of a controversial take, but I just really think that he is going to be a really, really solid contributing tight end at the next level. Now, is he Brock Bowers? No, but this isn't the class last year. Like, Tyler Warren would still have been a top 25 pick last year. And I think he's a really, really solid tight end that the Jets could come in and utilize. He's also going to help out in the run game too. He's a phenomenal run blocker. And I think you got Brees Hall and Braylon Allen back there. I think that's a really good duo. So you go add this very versatile weapon to that aging and inexperienced tight end room. And I think that you have a really solid weapon there for whatever young quarterback comes in. So Tyler Warren there. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers. This is where I have Mason Graham coming off the board. They struggled on the interior and edge pressure this past season. Just defensive line as a whole was not good for the Carolina Panthers. So Mason Graham is going to come in. He's a good interior pass rusher, but he also has a very solid run stuffing capabilities. I think you put him next to Derek Brown. And I think that that's a really good tandem there. This is a deep edge rushing class. You can go and get another edge rusher there in the top of the second round. So I like that fit there also. Wrapping things up in the top 10, and I'll give you a chance to give your thoughts. So this is where I have Tet McMillan coming off the board. So I do like Tet McMillan. I'm just not that sold that he's like an elite receiver at the next level. So I think if he comes into a room where you have Alvin Kamara, you have Chris Olave, you have guys that are already a little bit more established, that's really where he's going to do his best work. And he can be a mismatch nightmare from there. Where I struggle is if he is the top option, that's when I feel like he can struggle to really separate, just because while he's a good athlete for 6'5", 215, while he is smooth for 6'5", 215, he's not an elite downfield separator. He does need some alignment versatility to create mismatches for himself, and especially at the NFL level where you're going against the best of the best, I feel like there may be some growing pains in his lack of physicality. Even for being that big, he still lacks in physicality, and also he didn't play against a lot of press man. So there's just going to be, in my opinion, a learning curve for Tet McMillan at the next level. And I think going to a team that already has more solidified weapons, I think is going to be a better situation for him there. So, and then lastly, just to wrap up the top 10, Chicago Bears went with a different route here. Going to go with a guy that has just been flying up draft boards. I'm going to go with Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. Had a really dominant Senior Bowl. Only practiced 2 days because at the end of it, he flattened Josh Connerly and just absolutely ran right through him. And I think you go back and watch his tape. He led college football in sacks this past season. He just has so much speed coming off the edge, and I feel like with Chicago's outside linebacker setup, their 3-4. I think adding Mike Green across from Montez Sweat would just give them a phenomenal pass rush duo that is going to wreak havoc in a division that, a lot of really solid quarterbacks in that division right now. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of where they go, but give Mike Green the opportunity just to come flying off the edge early on in his career.
Mhm. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting now too, because I'm pretty sure Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator now for the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I want to double check that. And so it'd be interesting to kind of see. Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see because coming from the New Orleans Saints, where he's more defensive head coach, they had the more bigger traditional defensive ends, and Mike Green's the now more modern outside linebacker. That being said, I think he would be a great fit. And so that's just where I bring up is that going to be a guy that Dennis Allen wants to go after, or is he going to go after a bigger
Yeah,
guy like Shamar
maybe.
Stewart, for example? So I do think that edge rusher is the position there. I could also actually potentially see Will Campbell going there as well. And so, so I think it's either Will Campbell or like their preferred edge rusher. So that's where I think it'd be interesting. Um, with that, Ted McMillan, I think he's going to a great scenario, and I think another reason too why the Saints really want to go receiver is with their cap situation. Now they get a new head coach. They might actually even cut Derek Carr and just kind of
Yeah,
scrap this year. Give it to Spencer Rattler, see what he's got, and honestly, too, you're going to give Spencer Rattler, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, both those guys fully healthy. Got to figure out what they're going to do with Jawan Johnson, and then I'm pretty sure see how Rashid he comes back. But then if you go and get Ted McMillan, you do have a very solid skill position player room. So
yeah,
you'll know what you've got in Spencer Rattler, and then if he does awful, which is very possible, you're going to be picking here again or in this area again next year, and you can go and get the quarterback that you hope that you would get. Um, in a much better quarterback class. So
yeah,
all the other picks above that 5 through 8, I get the one I'll touch on just because I've done all these other ones as well with Will Johnson, Ashton Genty to the Raiders, and Mason Graham as well. Tyler Warren, I think to the Jets is very interesting. That is definitely going to be a need of theirs. But with the news coming out with Aaron Rodgers, I'm curious to see kind of which route they end up going here. Um, and if they somehow end up going quarterback, or if they find a stopgap quarterback, like trade for a Kirk Cousins, or maybe get a Justin Fields, or maybe they iron things out with Aaron Rodgers and they kind of resign his contract. But with all that being said, with Devontae Adams moving on, well, most likely moving on, he clears up 33 million in cap space, and Aaron Rodgers also most likely moving on as well. The Jets pick is going to be extremely interesting because that's now a lot of offensive weapons that they're going to be looking for. So I think going after just best offensive player available in their eyes, I think is extremely warranted. It's someone who
yeah.
I think would complement
It's
Garrett Wilson.
warranted.
It's warranted. Exactly. Yeah. So, but if you guys want to stop watching now, I totally get it. So, no, I'm just playing. But it's I really like Tyler Warren as well. I think 7 might be a little high. I think no offense, Tyler Warren. I think it would be criminal if Tyler Warren went 6 spots ahead of Brock Bowers. But that being said, though, it is a totally different draft class. It's a
Yeah,
totally different year and everything because Brock Bowers has just been. He's probably going to be one of the best tight ends that we've ever seen play if he's not
yeah.
already.
He's off
So
to a great start.
yeah, but I would say a pretty a solid top 10 so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the Tyler Warren pick. The Jets also too, they need tight end help. So maybe I'm drafting a little bit for need there, but I just think when you look at the versatility he brings, I think that is an interesting fit. So,
Yeah.
speaking of good fits, here at number 11, I'm going to have Will Campbell, the first offensive tackle, come off the board. I say offensive tackle loosely because he will more than likely kick inside depending on his measurements at the combine, but I think if you're the 49ers and you want to just kind of continue to be dominant in the trenches, run the ball 20 plus times a game, have great leaders on your team as well, Will Campbell's going to come in there and he's going to be a phenomenal fit for you in that team. And so I think that's a really good fit. Trent Williams is getting older. They did draft some replacements in the interior this past offseason, but I think Will Campbell can come in and he can find a spot somewhere on that offensive line and be a solid contributor for you as well. So next up with the Dallas Cowboys, we're going to go with James Pierce Jr., another edge rusher that I've really started to like. I kind of feel like he was misused a little bit at Tennessee. He was kind of at 6'5", 242 pounds. He was playing with a hand in the dirt in kind of a like true defensive end. And he actually held up fairly well. And that to me, that kind of limits his superpower a little bit where he just is so explosive off the edge. And he just wasn't able to utilize that. So I think you get him across from Micah Parsons. One, he's already going to be getting favorable matchups because Micah Parsons is going to probably have the back chip in his way or the tight end lined up over him. And so I think you go look at James Pierce Jr. on the other side now. He's probably going to be in a standing up position and be in a really favorable pass rush scenario, and he can utilize his pass rush tool bag and come off the edge screaming and just be a dominant player. And I think that is just a really favorable situation for him down there in Dallas. And so, especially with guys like Ashton Genty off the board, I think going and getting Micah Parsons a running mate is going to be critical uh, going forward for this team. So moving on to the Miami Dolphins. This was actually a pick that I made last time, but that I just also really liked. I'm going to go with Armand Membu. The more I watch him, the more and more I like him. He has the arm length that is required to be a tackle. He is only 6'3", so maybe he kicks in to be a guard. But if he is a guard, he is just going to be one of the most powerful, leverage intensive guards that in the league. And frankly, especially if you're Miami and you want to run the ball how they do, having enough athletic offensive linemen that are just this physically imposing, I think is going to be a really big deal. And if he can make it out at tackle, which I think he can, he has the length, he has the athleticism and the foot speed. I think he can be a really solid tackle at the next level. So I'm going to go with Armand Membu here to the Dolphins. They need a lot of offensive line help, and I think if they continue to invest in it, they got Patrick Paul last year, get Armand Membu this year. I think that is just going to be continuing to set themselves up well for the future. Here with the Indianapolis Colts, this has been my Tyler Warren spot, although he went already at 7 to the Jets. So I'm gonna have Malachi Starks come in. Malachi Starks just does so many things well. He was the leader of that Georgia defense this past year. He's just always in the right spot, doesn't seem to make a lot of mistakes. And if you're the Colts, I think adding that to the back end of your defense sounds phenomenal. They need a better secondary. They need kind of some big play prevention. And I think that Malachi Starks can come in. He can play over slot receivers. He can play over tight ends. He can play a deep half. He can be a single high deep safety. He can do whatever you need him to do. And I think that is a good thing for the Colts right now that really need that. And they can go and get some defensive interior help to really help stop the run later in this draft, because there's so many guys on that defensive interior that are going to be solid NFL players in this draft class. So here with your Atlanta Falcons, I went back and forth. I really tried to have this be the first trade spot, but I struggled a little bit with like who I really want teams to trade up for in this scenario, and because there's a lot of guys to me that are just kind of one and the same. I'm really out of guys that are like true first round grades for me at this point in the draft. And so I think, unfortunately for the Falcons, they just kind of get caught at the top of a tier where teams are comfortable sitting back and waiting. And so I got aggressive. I had the Falcons make a big swing here. And so I actually went with Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Missouri. I think he's just a really good complement to what they already have. You have Darnell Mooney, who's that down the field kind of like linear speed threat. You have Drake London, that is like your route technician, precision receiver that's going to run a lot of your timing routes. Go get a guy that, like Luther Burden, that can be like your explosive slot player, a guy that can house the ball on any given play. And I think that Zach Robinson in this Falcons offense would have a lot of fun just lining up with Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and you throw Luther Burden into the mix. And I think he's the piece that really completes this offense. So going with Luther Burden here. That was another 5 picks in the books. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think pretty standard overall. Will Campbell to the Niners makes absolute sense, especially if he falls that far. James Pierce going across from Mike Parsons. The Cowboys, they just need so much help. I think really anything outside of quarterback really is up for grabs here with all their picks. So just going best player available. If they want to do Josh Simmons and get him, Scott really likes, they want to go Mecca Buka or Luther Burden at 12, I would totally get it. And so I don't really think the Cowboys can do too much wrong with that pick. And I think with all the team needs that they have, that's another potential trade back spot as well. Armand Membu to the Dolphins once again, great player. He's been rising up a lot. I do think that offensive line is going to be huge for them as well. I also do like the trenches also too with like a guy like Kenneth Grant replacing Calais Campbell. I think that'd be very interesting. I think another sneaky guy here for both 14 and 15. This could be a guy I think we might start adding to his first round grade, but we'll have to see how he tests at the combine. But Benjamin Morrison, if he is going to test, he didn't play much this past season because of a hip injury, but we've all seen him play. And when healthy, he's one of the best corners in the league. If he played a full season, we'd be talking about him, I think, up there with Will Johnson and Travis Hunter. So
Yeah.
I think that that could be a guy that could come up here. I think this would also be a very likely spot here at 14 or 15 for either the Colts or the Falcons. I think with my Falcons too, just to wrap up, I was thinking about this as well, just while you were talking about it, and just be like, if you're going to go receiver, why not Emeka Egbuka? He's that slot guy as well. Darnell Mooney's not a long term option, but for the guy that got so many first downs for Ohio State, and I think then you add the cannon with Michael Penix, I think he'd be a great compliment to Drake London, just as a thought. So if they want to go receiver here, obviously edge rusher, like they could go any edge rusher there. I think that
Yeah.
that would fit their fancy. Mike Green, I think, would be the guy that might fit their system more, just with that 3-4 system that Raheem Morris likes to have with aggressive defensive tackles and the more outside linebackers. But we'll have to wait and see. Falcons haven't really drafted edge rushers that well. So, but they've done a pretty good job at skill position players in the first round. So, and also too, just knowing the aggressiveness of Terry Fontenot, I could see him still going receiver here and trying to address a lot of the big needs like edge rusher in free agency. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But once again though, too, can a lot of variance. I can see. I can see Malachi Starks, Luther Burden going a little bit higher. I can see them even falling closer to towards the edge of the first round, just depending on how teams like them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really is just going to be about fit and how these players interview and whatnot. But let's get back into it here with the Arizona Cardinals. So a bit of a different route. I usually am drafting defensive line here, but I wanted to flip things up and kind of highlight a guy that just has been really rising up draft boards here lately, and that is Gray Zabel, the tackle from North Dakota State. So he's going to kick into guard, but dude was dominant at the Senior Bowl. Net barely lost a rep in pass protection. He finishes it in the running game really, really well. He's a really good athlete. And he was the best offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl, and it wasn't even really close. He was looked like he was miles ahead of Josh Connerly Jr., Ariante Ursary, a lot of the guys there. And so apparently he interviewed really well also. And so I'm going to go with Gray Zabel here. Maybe a bit of a reach, like maybe this is his ceiling. Excuse me. Especially for being primarily an interior offensive lineman. But if you look, Arizona wants to run the ball a lot. They want to be physical in the trenches. And James Conner, was it Trey Benson that they drafted, or was it who was the running back they drafted last year? It might have been Trey Benson.
Yeah, it was Trey Benson.
It was okay. I was thinking of Jonathan Brooks was the other one, but no, Trey Benson, like they want to run the ball between the tackles. And I think Gray Zabel is a very physical, powerful guard that can come in there and really open up some holes for those running backs. So we're going to go Gray Zabel there. Next up here, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is actually where I went with Kenneth Grant. They need a big meat-eating defensive tackle in the middle there. They could also go edge rusher like Shamar Stewart, Jack Sawyer, Michael Williams. But I went with a guy that can come in there and stop the run because, frankly, the last couple seasons that defensive interior has just been not good, and they do need to shore that up before that they can really focus on getting after the passer. They already have Trey Hendrickson. Kenneth Grant has some pass rush upside. Maybe getting in a new defensive mind, I think, will maybe hype things up a little bit on that pass rush side. So getting Kenneth Grant, I think, is a good pick there for them. Seattle Seahawks. This is where I have Shamar Stewart coming off the board. They got Byron Murphy last year. Boye Mafe has really started to come on. But Shamar Stewart, I think, is the type of guy that Mike McDonald will look at and just be like, that guy is somebody I can coach up and really get the most out of. He did that. He did a similar thing with Boye Mafe. And when you look at Shamar Stewart, 6'6", 280, has length for days, just going to be a handful physically all the time. And if you can get a coach that can come in and really bring his skills up to where his physical talent is, like Mike McDonald can, I think Shamar Stewart could be a double-digit sack guy for most of his career. So I like the fit there for the Seattle Seahawks. And Shamar Stewart is slowly climbing up my draft board. Not a guy that I personally was like super high on, but even now I'm starting to realize like sometimes those physical traits just win out, and there's just not much that other guys can do about it. So moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is actually where I have Ben Morrison coming off the board. I will have him higher depending on his what the reports are coming out of the combine on what his hip injury is. I do hope that if his hip injury is not fully healed, that he would have people advising him to go back to school rather than come out of the draft. But he is only 20 years old, I believe. And I think if you get him, maybe he's not ready like right away. But if you can get him back to 100%, yeah, he is a top 10 pick caliber corner. And I think that the Tampa Bay can go ahead and snag him here. I think it's a little bit riskier than maybe taking some of these other guys that are still on the board. But if you can get a Benjamin Morrison at 19, I think that's really solid value there. So Ben Morrison, you are a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Denver Broncos, this is where I have Colston Loveland coming off the board. These tight ends are probably, these two specifically are probably the biggest risers in my eyes, where like I think if you compare them to the wide receivers that are available right now, so Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, I really like all of like those guys specifically, but Colston Loveland was the most productive wide receiver on an awful Michigan team. He's an explosive athlete for being 6'5", 245. He's really good in run after catch scenarios. He's really good in possession scenarios, and just seems to have a really good football IQ at this point. And I frankly am a little bit more interested in drafting Colston Loveland over one of these possession wide receivers at this point, like Emeka Egbuka. And that's a controversial take, but I do feel like Colston Loveland could have a Brock Bowers-esque rookie season in a Sean Payton type offense where he's catching 100 balls for 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. Just because I think he is that caliber of receiver. So I'm going with the Colston Loveland here to the Denver Broncos. Couple more picks here before I throw it back over to you. Pittsburgh Steelers. So we talked a little bit about this, and I think it's funny because we did our 3-round mock draft, and I said that, and we talked a little bit about it after, and I wasn't super happy with how I worded my opinion, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are a slightly odd drafting team. They usually end up with decent players out of those picks, but they do seem to prioritize like skill position players earlier on, and then they try to fill things out from there. And Najee Harris is a free agent. This is a very similar scenario to what happened when they drafted Najee Harris, where they had a running back who was a free agent. They didn't re-sign him, and then they went and drafted Najee Harris instead of just re-signing the running back that was already there. So I'm actually going to go with Amarian Hampton. This is your Najee Harris replacement. I think that this would be a really interesting fit. They like to run the ball like between the tackles a lot. Amarian Hampton is a super explosive runner. He can receive well out of the backfield. And I just think that he is a complete running back. And if it wasn't for Ashton Genty being one of like a Bijan Robinson, I'm trying to think Ezekiel Elliott, or like a top caliber running back prospect, I think Amarian Hampton would be getting a lot more hype. So Amarian Hampton is going to go there to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then last but not least, I'm going to have Tyleik Williams go to the Chargers. That defense was better against the run this year, but I think Tyleik Williams will take it to a whole nother level where they have Khalil Mack, they have Joey. Well, Khalil Mack is a free agent, but they have Joey Bosa. They could re-sign Khalil Mack if they want to. So they have a good edge pressure. But Tyleik Williams, I think, will really solidify the interior of that defense and just give them a really solid running defense from here on out.
I like it. Yeah, no, it's with the Chargers. So many different routes that they could end up going here. They probably will end up going. I think defensive front seven in some capacity, especially the way that the board has fallen. Where like you did still have Emeka Egbuka up there, but there might be some overlap. I think with him and Ladd. That being
Yeah,
said, though,
that
too,
was my
I don't I if you're Justin Herbert, you're like, please give me more receivers, and a guy like Emeka Egbuka, I think would be great. And so Steelers, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It just seems like with this running back class, like they're going to do something similar to what they've done in the past, where it was
yeah.
they drafted Najee Harris and let James Conner walk, and then when they drafted James Conner, I think it was a Gerard Mendenhall that they let walk, and then
No, I think it was Le'Veon Bell was there.
it was Le'Veon Bell, and I think then it was Mendenhall. I'm pretty sure after that. Whereas like they have running backs for their rookie contracts, and then they let them go because they don't want to pay
Yeah,
them, which frankly makes sense. So even though Najee Harris, he's been 1,000-yard rusher every single year with Pittsburgh, I would understand why they would move on from him. And it's just based off history, they're not going to re-sign him. Maybe they
yeah,
re-sign Jalen Warren to like a $2 million deal, something extremely cheap. And then they're going to have Amari Hampton on a very cheap uh, rookie contract as well. So I like that option a lot. Colston Loveland, I agree. I think he could have a great year, especially in this Sean Payton offense. I think a lot of us were very surprised on how efficient Bo Nix and that offense was. They just need more weapons. And so,
mhm,
with how good Cortland Sutton is, I think he brings a lot of attention as well. Even though he's getting into the latter stages of his career, I think you go get a big weapon up the middle like Colston Loveland. I think that would be a great compliment for that offense as a whole, and I could see him being very successful and a great red zone threat as well. Everybody else, Benjamin Morris to Tampa Bay. They need secondary Shamar Stewart in that Mike McDonald defense. I really liked it a lot. They kind of it looks like they do kind of a the 3-4 here, so I could see him lining up and being like that I like a defensive tackle esque because he has a similar metrics to Menabike at Baltimore. I think he's a little bit taller. I think
yeah,
Menabike 6'3", while Shamar Stewart 6'6", and then Menabike's I think got 10 pounds on him. But so I think it just goes to show how big Shamar Stewart is, and so I could see him potentially wanting to get into that role in that 3-4 defense. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. They typically have gone for more of an outside linebacker if they're going edge rusher, but we'll it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing here. I think another option could be some offensive linemen, particularly on the interior. But I think this is a pretty deep offensive line class that they can end up getting somebody on day two as well. So
yeah,
Kenneth Grant and Gray Zabel, I like those picks a lot. I think that those are phenomenal picks. Gray Zabel is going to be a guy. He's made himself a lot of money. Just similar though to guys like Malachi Starks and Benjamin Morrison. Just where in the first round is he going to go? I feel like 16, maybe 13 to Miami might be the peak. Uh, but then I could see him falling all the way to like 38 or something like that. So it'll be
yeah,
very interesting to see where he ends up falling. So, but no, let's wrap this up here. Final 10 picks are now
yeah.
on the clock.
Yeah. So starting off with the Green Bay Packers, they do need some secondary help. Jair Alexander has been banged up. Eric Stokes is a free agent. So I actually went with Jahdae Barron, the corner out of Texas. I say this every single time. He can fill so many different roles, I think, on a defense where he was a high, like highly graded safety 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, he was a slot corner. This past season, he played outside and he was good at all three. And so I think you put him into this Green Bay defense. I think that's a really solid pick for them. And this is actually where I have my first trade coming off the board. So there's another Texas player that has fallen, Calvin Banks Jr. I have some concerns about him. I think you go watch that Georgia game, and yeah, he grades out okay. But Michael Williams and Jalen Walker really took those two tackles lunch pretty consistently, especially in some true passing situations. And run blocking, he has some great highlight run blocks, but on a down in and down out basis, he can concern me a little bit because he just like tries to take people's heads off. And that can lead to a lot of whiffs. And instead of just getting in the way, he has great grip strength. He just tries to like maul these people and like throw them out the field. Like, and so there are some concerns, and that's why he's fallen to me. But I think if you go and weigh the upside, I think he has the requisite length to be a tackle. He has a good anchor when people try to bull rush him. I think he has adequate foot speed to play tackle at the next level. There are just those concerns where, like those two Georgia games, or the one Georgia game because he didn't play in the second. The one Georgia game, those two edge rushers took his, like, consistently beat him, and Cameron Williams. So I'm gonna go with the New England Patriots trading up here. Not the Chicago Bears, the New England Patriots. They give up pick 38, 69, and 219 for pick 24, and they receive 139 in return. And that should hopefully balance out pretty close on the trade chart. So we'll force this, and the Patriots will take Kelvin Banks here. They just need good offensive linemen. I do think that they will have to be aggressive to get a tackle. Just as you'll see, some of these tackles will start to fly off the board here pretty quickly. So they get up and get their hopefully tackle of the future. He just needs to develop a few of those traits that I just mentioned. So Kelvin Banks coming off the board here. Houston Texans, one of my favorite offensive linemen that I've scouted, not because he was necessarily like elite at what he was doing for most of the season, but I think if you look at just his ability to learn and improve on the fly, I think that was something that is really, really important, especially for the team that he was playing on, which was Ohio State, where we're going to go with Donovan Jackson. So he is more than likely going to be an interior offensive lineman at the next level, but his athleticism and physicality and then just ability to be coached up and learn how to play left tackle, which is something he had never done before until he started doing it in all of these Big Ten games against guys like Abdul Carter. I think that shows a lot about who he is as a football player. And so I really like Donovan Jackson here to the Houston Texans. You have Laramie Tunsil. You can go put Donovan Jackson somewhere in that interior. You have Blake Fisher that you drafted last year to be your right tackle. So I do think Donovan Jackson finds a home here in Houston. The Los Angeles Rams, going to go with another guy that I have started to come up on lately, Trey Amos, very physical corner. I think you look at that defense, Cameron Kitchens is kind of the savvy safety on the back end. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk are getting after the passer up front. The only thing that they really are lacking is a solid corner, and I think Trey Amos can come in and do that. He can play a deep third really well. He can play man coverage really well. He can reroute wide receivers off the line of scrimmage, and he's just a really solid corner that has really good tape in this past season. And I think that the Rams can come in and get an immediate contributor in the secondary right here with Trey Amos. Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, Ronnie Stanley is a free agent. I doubt he's going to go anywhere. I think the Ravens will do whatever they can to bring him back. And so that makes me feel a lot more comfortable about making this pick. And so Josh Simmons, Torres patellar tendon, a lot of times that is a 9-month plus recovery. So if he can come in, learn behind Ronnie Stanley for a season or two, go through his rehab and really improve, I think that would be probably the best thing for him. If Josh Simmons didn't tear his patellar tendon and he had played the way that he did throughout in the first 5 games throughout the rest of the season, we would not be having a conversation about who the Patriots are taking it for. He looked phenomenal in those first 5 games, and he had a really good first half against Oregon as well. There's a big injury concern there. His left knee may never be the same. So he falls all the way down here. This is a risk I think the Ravens can definitely take, especially with an aging left tackle who maybe has 1 to 2 years left on his deal. So Josh Simmons is going to the Baltimore Ravens. Next up with the Detroit Lions. Another guy that I came into this process really high on was Nick Scorton. He's fallen down the board a little bit, but I think I don't want to say like bad PR or like kind of a false narrative. He just wasn't asked to do nearly the same thing he was this season as he was last season. And when you go look at what Nick Scorton was doing at Purdue, he was playing primarily an outside linebacker role. He was able to utilize his athleticism, size, and strength to really kind of bully tackles, where at A&M, they were asking these edge rushers to play defensive end with discipline in the run game, with gap integrity, and just making sure that the play never really got outside of them. And I think you go put them in a defense like Detroit that loves to get upfield, they love to create havoc. You also put them across from oh crap, what's his name?
Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson. I can't want to say Trey Hendrickson, but that I knew that wasn't right. You put him across from Aiden Hutchinson, and Nick Scorton could be a dominant edge rusher for them, and he can be the right hand man that Aiden Hutchinson needs. So Nick Scorton is going to go here to the Detroit Lions, just to kind of continue the dominant edge rushers that are going to go in this class. Next up, the Washington Commanders are another team that do not have a lot of draft capital. So we are going to go with the Cleveland Browns making a move up here. Cleveland Browns have a ton of draft capital. So we're going to go with pick 33, 102, and 200. And they will receive pick 29, 147, and 247. So the Commanders get to move up pretty significantly in both from the 7th to the 5th or 6th, and then from the 5th to the 4th. And so we will force that trade. I'm actually going to have the Browns go with Josh Connerly Jr. They jump up in front of a few teams there at the end of the first round that might be tackle needy. Jedrick Wills is a free agent. And they have a few other guys that are aging on that offensive line. And so I think Josh Connerly could potentially kick into guard as well. And so they just get another really solid offensive lineman here just to kind of continue to grow stronger in the trenches here. So Josh Connerly Jr., they're going to Cleveland. Here with the Buffalo Bills, I went a different route as well than what I've gone before. A guy that I really liked and unfortunately was not really able to watch a ton of, just because he tore his ACL in August of this year, is going to be Siobhan Ravel, the cornerback from East Carolina. Really long, really great athlete, has some great tape from 2023. Fortunately, 2024 was cut short. So I still think if he's able to, I think he'll interview really well. He will test really well athletically, whether it's at the combine or at his pro day. So Siobhan Ravel, I think, is just a phenomenal pick for the Buffalo Bills. They have other needs, but I think that they could get an Omar Norman Lott, an Aeneas Peebles, or another defensive pass rusher in the 2nd and 3rd round. Because I believe they have two second round picks. They have 60. Oh no, that's the Chiefs. They have 56 and 62, where they can really kind of beef up the trenches there on that side of the ball. And so I think that they can really kind of get rid of Von Miller, bring in somebody to replace him, and have a young stud corner there on the outside, because Kaiir Elam has been a bit of a bust. So we're going to go with Siobhan Ravel there at pick 30. Here with the Kansas City Chiefs, the last tackle on my board that I'm really excited about is Ariante Ursary. And after that performance in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are desperately going to want to be keeping Joe Thuney at left guard. Go get a more powerful left tackle and one that can play better than Kingsley Suamataia or Wanya Morris. And I think Ariante Ursary could be that guy. He showed that he has a really good anchor at the Senior Bowl. He has the athleticism and the hands and the foot speed to keep up with guys on the outside. His biggest thing right now is he's just not uber flexible in the hips, and so he tends to lean and be a little bent over at times. So going to go with Ariante Ursary. I think that they can work out some of his issues pretty quickly and have a starting caliber left tackle there. They could also be in the market for a Cam Robinson. They don't have the most amount of cap space, but they could be in the veteran tackle market. And then last but not least, the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Mekhi Becton is a free agent, and he will most likely not be back. I feel like he's going to get priced out of Philly. And so I'm going to go with my top interior offensive lineman on the board, and that's going to be Tyler Booker. Just a really powerful interior offensive lineman. Realistically, could go higher than this, but I think that's a plug and play option. I think when you look at that team and what they need, Tyler Booker is the one of the only players I think that I can draw like a clear conclusion to of like this player could come in and actually contribute right
Yeah.
away, and he won't be behind a couple other all pros. So Tyler Booker there going to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is my mock draft. So only 2 trades, and they were both teams coming up from the early second round into the late first. I do feel like that is just how this draft is going to be. There's just not going to be a lot of teams that are like really passionate about one specific player and have to get them, especially early on. And so I think that that's going to be an option there where there's only a couple trades and it's really just teams moving out of the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because we've seen this the past couple of drafts where it's just move after move after move. And you're right. I can kind of see like it would have to be a team who would just have to fall in love with a Mike Green or with
Yeah.
a Colson Loveland, and they want like to go and get him, and so they're willing to give up a third round pick, to go and get this guy here because there's only a handful of people that are really worth that true first round caliber grade. Not
Yeah.
saying that all these players aren't bad, but it's more just all these players here. I think from like maybe Malachi Starks, who was 16th again. Uh,
Gray
um,
Zabel.
Gray Zabel. All those guys would be day 2 picks in last year's class. Just
Yeah.
just with how loaded that class was, and so with these picks here, I like your Patriots trading back up into the first round, get that extra year of control for a guy that they like. I think Kelvin Banks would be a good fit there. Right, taken right before him, Jade Barron. I like that as well. Green Bay just needing secondary, that makes sense. I think they could be in the Ben Morrison camp also too. Have to see how those test results come back. But I think Nick Scorton, just with his overall athleticism, I think would be great. Going across from Aiden Hutchinson. To be fair, I think a lot of people will be great going across from Aiden Hutchinson just with how explosive he is and just how great he is. But with a lot of the other picks, I think they kind of make sense. The Chiefs to me, uh, I do think we'll have to kind of monitor the offseason, but I can see the Chiefs being extremely aggressive, and
Yeah.
wanting to move up and go and get a guy that they really like, both whether that be an offensive play, like a weapon, or going to get an offensive lineman that they like. They do have the 63rd and 66th pick, so that can get you up pretty far. I do believe if I go and look up the draft tech here, or the shoot, let me get this up. Draft chart for uh just like the equivalent value, so to say. Let's say they traded the 31st and the 63rd picks. How many points would that get them? So that totals up. Oh, geez, I need to get glasses. So that's 976 points. So that would get them all the way up to pick 17, pick 18, with Cincinnati and Seattle if they just traded up those 2 picks. And they'd have the 66 pick, the Tennessee Titans third round pick. So essentially picking again at the back end of the second round, the beginning of the third round, to be exact. So I could see this team being aggressive and going up and getting a guy that they really like to try and fix that problem, whether it be a Will Campbell, whether it be a Josh Simmons, if they feel confident in the knee, or somebody else, just to go in and figure out that left tackle spot because it, it was just it was tough to watch. It was impressive to watch how great that Eagles defense was, but then had all the inconsistencies and poorness of that Chiefs offensive line really showed
Yeah.
in the Super Bowl. But once again, though, too, on the flip side, we can talk all we want about the offensive line, but they also have no weapons, so to say. I mean, Rashi Rice, season-ending injury. Xavier Worthy as well had a spectacular statistical game in the Super Bowl. A lot of garbage time points. So he'll continue to grow. But if they want to go get another game-changing guy, um, I think they could give up a lot of picks. And even some future picks as well to go and get a guy that would complement that system.
Yeah, and that is, I definitely think they could be. I will say it is a little interesting. So you have the Chargers, the and the Broncos there at 20 and 22. I doubt that they will trade with them. I would be interested to
They
see
won't
like
trade
if
them. Yeah.
I would be interested to see like if the Bengals, like a rival of the Chiefs, would trade with them also. You have just some AFC teams in that range that I don't know. And granted, like the Bills traded with the Chiefs last year, so anything can happen. But it'll be interesting to see if uh teams overlook um the Chiefs just because they don't want to give them the opportunity to trade up or something. So I don't know. That's maybe I'm also looking at things a little bit petty because teams used to do that to the Patriots, and Bill used to do that. Bill did that to the Jets in 2022, I believe,
Yeah.
with like Christian Gonzalez, where he allowed the Steelers to trade up and take the tackle the Jets wanted. So, uh, but no, I mean, throughout the rest of the draft, I really like picks like 15 through like 45 or 50. Like that to me is like the stronghold of this draft. Like that is where there's going to be really good value. Like all those people or all those players are like in a very same or similar tier to me. Obviously you have like different positions and positional value and whatnot, but like that is where like this draft can get wild. Is I mean there's just so many names that could go in the back end of this first round. And I feel like we end up talking about this with every single mock draft, but there's just a lot of guys that could be drafted in the first round. And so I'm excited to kind of see how this draft process continues to shake out. The next big step is going to be the NFL Combine. And so I think that will give us some more insight just into these players athletically. We'll really be able to kind of compare Will Campbell and some of these top offensive linemen to each other. Get to see the 40-yard dashes, get to watch the gauntlets. It's going to be a fun time, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, it's we're hitting probably our favorite part of the
Yeah.
Tracy Take channel. It's just the speculation, figuring out what we think teams should be doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun leading up. Just 2 months away, 2.5 months, I think actually to be exact, to the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft.
Yep. Yep. Looking forward to it. And we will be going live. So make sure to like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. And also, I guess we should get an event or something set up. But if you want to hit the bell notification, you will get notified whenever we post a video or go live. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up here. And other than that, thank you.